Hello and welcome to text 5.1 of the Edexcel English Language and Literature Anthology. This is the BBC One Panorama interview between Martin Bashir and Princess Diana from 1995. And as you know from the actual anthology itself, it's between Martin Bashir. This was quite a famous interview in its day, 1995. And broadcast on Panorama, and because of, in terms of the context, because of the subject matter, because it's Princess Diana, this is primarily initially made for a British audience, but it had international appeal and was broadcast worldwide by obviously different stations around the world. So there's really a national domestic audience and then a global international audience as well, originally at the time this was made. And it follows a lot of the discourse structure typical of interviews, and you're going to expect to find things like the cooperative principle at work here, where the interviewer has to, and the interviewee will cooperate to create a full interview. So it works along those lines, and that's how it proceeds. We'll move on to the next actual page, which is the document. So you might have yours with you. You might want to add some of the things that are on here. We'll just zoom in a bit here. Okay. So get the pointer sorted out. And we open with, there we go. So we've got, just to begin with, I think the British, obviously this is an extract, I should say before I carry on there. This is obviously not the whole thing. The video sometimes is on YouTube, but it seems to come and go and disappears, and the BBC will take it down and another one appears. So sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. Then I think the British people need someone in public life to give affection, to make them feel important, to support them, to give them light in their dark tunnels. So you've got straight away, give them light in their dark tunnels, antithesis because of light in their dark tunnels as well. This opening is obviously a response to something that Bashir has asked. So there's another question he's asked before this, which we don't see because it's outside the scope of the actual extract. So you've got obviously adjacency pairs at work here because there's question and answer, and you can see that here with this one as well. This is spoken, because it's spoken, there's going to be elements here, and also because of elements of informality and because of Diana's social position. There's some formal elements, there's some informal elements, but because it's spoken, it tips into informal territory. And I think because of the familiar collocation, this antithesis, give them light in the dark tunnels, there's quite a few little cliche kind of phrases in here, and I think that's just because it's spoken, because it's going to be partially planned. I don't necessarily know to what extent Princess Diana would have seen the questions beforehand. I'm assuming she probably would have done, and a publicist and those people would have had some idea of what Bashir was going to ask. So again, with Bashir, the questions, it's effectively semi-scripted, really. There's some ideas of what's going to be said, but there will be variation actually within the response themselves. Then you've got there's a bit of parallel phrasing here because you've got these infinitive verb forms repeated here: to give affection, to make them feel important, to support them, to give them light. Things like this, when you've got like parallel phrasing like that of this infinitive verb form, would suggest to me pre-planning in many ways. It's not scripted, it's not rehearsed as such, but there's some planning about what's going to be said. It's worth acknowledging that. And then you've got, I see it as a possibly unique role, and yes, I've had difficulties. So this is euphemistic here as well. You'll see euphemism here because you're probably familiar with the concept of conversational face and the idea that when we're speaking, we try to preserve this conversational face, as in our conversational status. So Diana isn't going to like necessarily flag up in great detail things she's not necessarily happy going over again or comfortable going over again, or things she's not necessarily proud of. No one would do this, especially on a publicly transmitted interview of this nature. You get everybody has witnessed over the years. Again, it's hyperbolic. If you think about it, it can't literally be true because like little babies and things aren't going to really be aware of it. So it's hyperbolic, and but again, it's typical kind of phrase that is used. But let's now use the knowledge I've gathered to help other people in distress. So this again, you could link this phrase to conversational face, and obviously it's kind of self-promotion in a way, not necessarily in a big-headed kind of way, but showing I'm trying to be positive and move things forward in many ways. So again, we've said about adjacency pairs, question and answer. That's really standard for interviews. This is quite a short response, relatively speaking. But of course, the other thing contextually with this interview is, of course, it'll have been edited. So some responses might have been longer, they've been trimmed. Things may have been shuffled around in post-production and they've been altered. So it's not exactly like a real conversation. It's controlled, not just in the pre-planning, but also in the editing as well. So we've got double lightsaber again. Up until you came into this family, yeah. So you've got a foregrounded adverbial phrase here. Up until you came into this family, the monarchy seemed to enjoy an unquestioned position at the heart of British life. So there's some things going on here with, you've got a metaphor there, heart of British life. That's one thing you could draw on there. And we also have generalisation here. If you look at it, do you feel that you're at all to blame for the fact the survival of the monarchy, it's hyperbolic, is now a question that people are asking? A very standard journalistic technique is to distance yourself from asking difficult questions. So a journalist will ask questions along the lines of, how would you respond to claims that you should retire, or how do you respond to allegations? You can depersonalise. Really, the journalist is asking themselves, really, but you can depersonalise it. Do you feel that you're at all to blame for the fact that survival of the monarchy is now a question that people are asking? And Dinah's response: no, I don't feel blame. I mean, once or twice I've heard people say to me that, so there's some reported speech here. Dinah's out to destroy the monarchy, or indirect speech, which has bewildered me, passive voice. So she's not actually specifying who's said this, in a similar way to Bashir doesn't actually specify who's asking these questions. She doesn't specify who's saying these things. I'm guessing they mean the media. In some ways, the people seems to be substituted for the media in a lot of the time, I think. As if that's really always representative of public opinion. That's passive voice, which has bewildered me, because why would I want to destroy something that is my children's future? This is emotive language, so a lot of the angle of this is Diana presenting herself as a concerned mother as well. That's part of her identity, and again, I haven't mentioned voice yet, but that's part of it. So voice of Diana as projecting herself as less a princess and more of a concerned mother in many ways, as a caring mother. And Bashir's persona that he's projecting in terms of his voice is one of professionalism. So he's projecting himself as a professional journalist, which of course he is. He's still out there. He's still going. At the time of the recording, fronted conjunction. That's a feature of informal speech as well. And here's a colloquialism as well. I think that is a problem. I think that should be sorted out, yes. So that's a colloquial phrase there. It would suit in again with it being in the spoken mode as well, wouldn't it, when you think of it in those ways. So moving on to this next section here. When you say indifferent, what do you mean? They don't care. People don't care anymore. So the idea, again, it's more generalisation. They've been so force-fed, this is metaphor, cliche really as well, isn't it? So force-fed with marital problems, whatever, that's a tricolon, to express the idea of she's tired of seeing all these news reports about her, that they're fed up. So actually that connects back to that, doesn't it? So force-fed, that image is reinforced there. They're fed up, that familiar collocation, and effectively it's a colloquial idiom is linked to that earlier one as well. She's even saying the same thing. So I'm fed up of reading about it. You've in effect here you have a form of anadiplosis, which is when you start a sentence or clause with a word or phrase that the last one finishes with. And I know we've got I'm in the middle of it here, but they're fed up, I'm fed up. I'd say it's close enough to count. So if you say a form of anadiplosis, that's what I would go for there, because it seems to be ashamed to waste a good term just for a tiny little technicality like that. So it's a form of anadiplosis. I'm in it, so God knows what people out there must think. This creates a sense of incrementum. There's build up here of people are fed up, other people are fed up with it. They must be really fed up. They hear this, they hear that, and then it's so bad. I mean, I think it's really annoying as well. So there's a sense of incrementum built up there as well. Do you think the monarchy needs to adapt and to change in order to survive? Notice these three verbs, and they're in infinitive verb form as well. To adapt, to change, to survive. A lexical set there of, it's got a lot of evolution really, isn't it? So that's what Bashir is getting at there, is effectively saying, do you think the monarchy needs to evolve? Do you think it needs to change? It's those ideas, adapt and to change, survive. It's got a kind of evolution, almost metaphorical effect to that lexical set there. Then I understand that change is frightening for people. Again, more generalisation. Who exactly is scared? Don't know. Especially if there's nothing to go to. It's best to stay where you are. I understand that. But I do think, another fronted conjunction there, but I do think there are a few things that could change. This is kind of colloquial kind of speech as well, isn't it? A few things that could change. A few things that would alleviate this doubt. And sometimes complicated relationship between monarchy and public. I think they could walk hand in hand as opposed to be so distant. And so that's an idiom, walk hand in hand. So another informal feature of the speech there, because idiom contains familiar collocation actually. So it's an idiomatic expression. Then what are you going to try and affect? What are you doing, to try and affect some kind of change? So another interrogative from Bashir, as you would expect from an interview. Well, with William and Harry, for instance, I take them around homelessness projects. I've taken William and Harry to people dying of AIDS, albeit I told them it was cancer. I've taken the children to all sorts of areas. So there's anaphora here. I take them round. I've taken. This anaphora, I would say again, it's another sign of pre-planning about what she's saying. She's had some idea of preparation here. And she's not necessarily sitting with a pile of notes in front of her as such. I find this interesting as well because bear in mind it's 1995, obviously not now, but by the time this interview was broadcast initially, and this parenthetical clause I find interesting, albeit I told them it was cancer. I don't think in the modern age you would probably lie to your children about it. I think you just say AIDS. I think modern children would accept it anyway. They wouldn't necessarily have any questions to ask about it. They just accept it as it's another illness. So I think that's the level that children would see it. But of course, to contextualise it, 1995, it's really AIDS in the public eye. Really, by 1995, it's about 10 years, just over 10 years, really. And so there's still, at this point, 1995, there's still a relatively strong element of taboo tied up with it. So I presume that's why she says it. But for me, I think that dates the text. That's my theory about that. It seems a strange thing to do. Because if you look at it, she doesn't really need to say it. I've taken William and Harry to people dying of AIDS. I've taken the children to all sorts of areas when I'm not sure anyone this age in this family have been before. It works completely fine without that. But that's why I think, as in case anyone, the audience listening to it might think, oh, AIDS, at the time, because there was more of a taboo in that era about it. But yeah, I think less so now. It wouldn't be. Maybe it would be edited out of a modern version of this if it was on. If Diana were alive, of course. If it went into that, into this kind of 21st century age. But anyway, so we have, and they have a knowledge. They may never use it, but the seed is there. That's a metaphor as well. And we've got, and I hope it will grow, extended metaphor, I hope it will grow. The seed will grow because knowledge is power. That's a cliche. But look, that extended metaphor, again, suggests to me it's pre-prepared. But it is about projecting her image as a responsible, caring, effective mother. Now we move on to the next page. And there's a bit of a shift here, not straight away, but there's a bit of a shift on this page with where the interview goes next. And you've got, you're having a look at it, you say, what are you hoping that the experience is for your children? What impact that experience will have on your children? So this is a non-fluency feature. So this is actually kind of imperfect, isn't it? This is a non-fluency feature of speech, as in when we're speaking, like when I'm speaking, recording these, I make the odd mistake, I have to correct myself, there's self-correction here. So he has to do a repair, as it's also known. Unusual, actually, because you'd think I just recorded again. It seems a bit weird, but I suppose they didn't want to lose something. Maybe the actual way the interview was going. Maybe they thought it would be too disruptive to re-record that question or something along those lines. So it does seem slightly unusual. I want them to have an understanding of people's emotions, people's insecurities, people's distress, and people's hopes and dreams. So it's parallel phrasing, and then all of these are all abstract nouns. They're all abstract concepts, abstract nouns. Emotions, insecurities, distress, people's hopes and dreams. It's actually quite vague, but it sounds really good, and it's been pre-prepared, obviously, as well. This question seems a little disjointed, but then, of course, it could have been edited, and it could have been bolted on. There could have been more from this here. What kind of monarchy do you anticipate? Actually, quite a strange question, I think. Putting anticipate as a Latin kind of word there at the end is kind of a slightly strange way of asking that question. More likely to say something like, what kind of monarchy do you expect to see in the future, I think would probably be a more likely way of saying it. Presumably he's gone for that because of the formal nature of who he's, the formality of the situation of being a journalist as technically social inferior talking to a social superior. So as a princess, I would like a monarchy that have more contact with people, and I don't mean by riding bicycles and things like that. So this is kind of deliberately ironic, but just having a more in-depth understanding. And I don't say that as a criticism to the present monarchy. I just say that as what I see and hear and feel on a daily basis in the role I have chosen for myself. Lexical set of senses. So again, just like caring, in touch with the senses, see, hear, feel, and there's a kind of conciliatory tone to it. She's not criticising the monarchy as such. She obviously, part of this interview referred to earlier on that she developed this reputation of out to destroy the monarchy, and so she's countering this, and it all goes back to the idea of face, and again you link that to voice and how she's presenting herself. There's more depersonalisation here. There's a lot of discussion at the moment. Who's discussing anything? See, there's a lot of discussion at the moment. Well, who's discussing it? Like old ladies, down the road, or who's discussing this? What's he talking about? Again, it's probably the media, isn't it? Really, but there's a lot of discussion at the moment about how matters between yourself and the Prince of Wales will be resolved. Euphemistic, matters between yourself, marital problems he's talking about here, but it's more respectful and euphemistic to describe it in that way. There's even the suggestion of a divorce between you. So again, there's more depersonalisation. There's litotes as well, playing this down. There's even the suggestion of a divorce between you. What are your thoughts about that? It's less confrontational. It's less face-threatening if he frames the questions in this way, and it creates that voice. It's less rude. He's more likely not to aggravate his interviewee. So if he's too confrontational with his questions, too direct, then he might aggravate Diana and not get the answers that he requires. And also ruin the interview. So that would be a bit pointless. Then I don't want to get divorced, but obviously we need clarity on a situation that has been of enormous discussion over the last 3 years in particular. So what I like to say that is, I await my husband's decision of which way we're all going to go, and so that's metaphorical about which way we're going to go as well. If he wished a divorce to go through, would you accept that? That's slightly more direct from Bashir there, isn't it? I would obviously discuss it with him, but up to date, neither of us have discussed this subject, though the rest of the world seems to have. That's hyperbolic, because the rest of the world won't have discussed it. It maybe just seems like that to her, but it's hyperbolic for effect, obviously. Bashir's pushing a bit more now, isn't he, with the questions. Would it be your wish to divorce? No, it's not my wish. These are shorter responses here, as Diana is less comfortable talking about this particular aspect of the interview. She's quite happy talking about being a mother and what she's doing there. Why? Wouldn't that resolve matters? Again, euphemistic. Why would it resolve matters? Answering a question with a question, it's an echoic response. And I'd say this shows Diana is not as comfortable. Again, it proves that point I just said earlier. She's not as comfortable talking about the potential of divorce in this aspect of the interview as well. And of course, she's got to bear in mind this wider audience is also going to be including the royal family as well. We'll be watching this as well to see what she's saying. It would provide the clarity that you talk about. It would resolve matters as far as the public are concerned. Perhaps. So he uses that as a qualifier again to make it less confrontational. Yes, but what about the children? Rhetorical question. Our boys. That's what matters, isn't it? Another rhetorical question. Do you think you will ever be queen? This is obviously pre-divorce. All this, obviously. No, I don't know. That's diacope there. It may not be pre-prepared, though. It could just be a part of normal speech in this case. Then you've got the final part of this. I'd like to be a queen of people's hearts, in people's hearts, but I don't see myself being queen of this country. This phrase became associated with Diana as Queen of Hearts. It was a sort of moniker that she became attached to after this interview. But I don't see myself being queen of this country. I don't think many people will want me to be queen. Again, it's generalisation. Look, but actually, what I said about generalisation, she actually does go into more detail this time. Actually, when I say many people, I mean the establishment that I married into, because they have decided that I'm a non-starter. It still depersonalises it, but in terms of the pragmatics, as in the context of the implied meaning, the establishment I married into, they have decided it's got to be the upper echelons of the royal family. It's got to essentially be the Queen, and maybe Prince Philip as well, and probably Prince Charles too. So that's the main thing with that one. The they there, that's like deliberate circumlocution to avoid saying it's the Queen really who's done this. So that is that text. So hopefully you found that useful, and the others are available for you to listen to as well. So you can subscribe to those and listen to more as well. And I hope you found that useful. Thank you for listening.